It
everybody.
works. Hey, hello everybody. Oh, I got my dogs barking. No, there's nobody here. Thank you. Um, so there's no Dara tonight. So I'm in charge of if this works or not.
I
And
have
today
faith.
it is. What was that?
I have faith.
We decided by who was last to go. Nut it. We're already off to some silliness. But we have Lori, who is going to be back in a minute. We, of course, have Katie here, and I'm Chrissy. And tonight we are talking about the end of our doodle discussion, but this one's about the behavior problems with all of our doodles, because I think a lot of people really find them to be difficult. What do you think, Katie?
Because I do so much training while grooming, the first couple times, yes, they can be difficult, but they just need to know. They need to learn. And I think because the breeders tend to tell people they don't need to be groomed till they're a year old, sometimes that is they just don't know. They're terrified. Honestly, that's the way I feel about it. And because
Yeah.
of that, I don't tend to hold a grudge, so to speak, to any dog on the grooming table, because most of the time it's just because they don't know, or they don't understand what's going on, or they're uncomfortable in some way, or something hurts, or I don't hold it against the breed or the dog, or I just don't.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
try to
I agree
figure
with
out
that.
where the issue lies and solve it. That's all.
I think from my point of view, because I am a trainer and grooming, but
Mhm.
I think a lot of the time, because the owners of doodles are unprepared dog owners,
Yes.
many of these people, and we have to remember this and educate them as they go. Like, he's a wonderful dog. You're right. You got a wonderful pet and he's wonderful. But he has a coat type that's very complicated.
Mm.
He hasn't been groomed when he should have been being groomed all along. And
Yep.
so there's Lori
Hi,
peeping
Lori.
in, peeping in. But to talk to people about, like, your dog has a much more complicated coat. You're not used to getting this dog groomed. He's not used to the process. And I think a lot of the time we have to remember that these owners haven't done training. In a lot of cases, these owners haven't done dog training stuff. And you
Right.
might think that that doesn't apply, but part of it is that they've been sold this idea that, oh, I got this dog because this breeder's dogs are great with kids and they're great with other dogs, and they don't know that they have to put the work in. So a lot of these people are first-time dog owners, totally, entirely unprepared. They've got, like, they're brushing them with a whisk, or a banana. We don't know what they're doing at home, and they've never had them around stuff. Like, they're basically a great pet because they don't do anything with them other than cuddle and give them food.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's where our behavior problems come in, because now we're expecting them to do stuff, and the dog's like, I've never had anybody do that to me before,
Right.
and we lose our patience.
Yep.
I try not to, but don't we all? You know?
All of us. Yeah. At some
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
And especially if we're really frustrated with an owner, bringing them in really rough shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's part of what makes us really frustrated, where we end up in this situation where now we're frustrated and the dog is getting frustrated too. Dog's
Yeah.
like, you are not fun loving like everybody else in my world, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And then they also have, like, probably a bunch of matting and stuff. And my own point of view, and I'll let you guys tell me I'm crazy. My own point of view is, if it's their first time grooming, we should start them off like they're puppies. I
Yeah.
don't care if they're matted everywhere. I don't think we should be doing an entire demat. It didn't happen overnight. It can't be fixed in one sitting. That we're sometimes traumatizing these dogs in that effort to get the mats off. And
Right.
we're kind of creating a lot more problems than we needed to, because
Mm-hmm.
we're like, okay, these are some things that we're going to work on this week, and send them home with some homework,
Right.
and work on things in smaller pieces, and not worry as much about, hey, let's just get all these mats off today.
Right.
Because you're owners. No, why would they do this? And
Right.
and just try to, like, pound through it. This poor dog.
Yeah.
That humanity over vanity includes behavior problems.
Right. Agree. Yep.
Well, and some of the times I feel like the groomers who get frustrated just don't realize these dogs, you have to treat them with puppies. And so what I do for any first time grooming, I no longer call it puppy package anymore, because people are so stuck in the idea, well, my dog's not a puppy, you know. And
Yeah.
I took a page off of Jennifer Bishop. She has a and the name of it I don't have quite yet, but I do 4 sessions with a dog who's first time being groomed. And I want you to come in for 4 different sessions before we do any kind of initial haircut. The first one might be just, hey, sit on my table, smell all these weird stuff and things, like you say, Chrissy, you know, and just
Weird stuff
getting
and things.
you know, and doing things like that. And it'll help. And the whole, well, he's not a puppy anymore. He's a year-old doodle who's now matted. Well, we're going to treat him like a puppy still.
Right, because
You know,
And then we get the other owners who think they're a puppy until they're 4.
yes.
Like, oh, he's still a puppy. He's a baby, but no, he's not a puppy anymore. You know,
He
and
should have manners.
but yeah, those first time grooms. Maybe it's like the first time groom package. You know,
Yes,
but like, hey, listen, I'm just gonna get him to know like what this is all about, what's
Side
happening.
Side note, Chrissy, Lori, I want to talk to you about that, because I want to do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
So at some point we need to.
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm done. No more next. Sorry.
That's not a side note.
Side
I didn't want to forget.
Well, and because we're all in New England, and gonna put this out here too. In New England, we don't have an unwanted puppy population. Our shelters are bringing puppies from other places.
Exactly.
We get a lot of adult animals coming in through rescue, and that's a lot of what we see. So whether, you know, I know this is the doodle episode, but we're seeing a lot of animals coming in at all ages.
Right.
And we're successfully teaching them to be good for grooming.
Yeah.
So the age part isn't important as much as it's the first couple of impressions of grooming.
Right, exactly.
And how they adapt to it, and if they think it's safe or not, you know.
Yeah. And I agree that it shouldn't be called a puppy package. It should be definitely a first time grooming package. And you have it's all
the
new
grooming success package.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. Now
it's all new and scary. They've never had clippers near them. They've never had I've had some that've never had a bath.
Yeah.
So, and not just doodles, but we're doing doodles. But it's I would be terrified if you threw me in a big metal tub. Well, mine's metal anyway. A big metal tub that makes all kinds of noise, and turn on a big loud sprayer, and all of a sudden I'm getting soaking wet. That's terrifying.
How many of them have never been out of their house?
Yeah, right. Especially,
you know, some of these dogs are like, you know, I mean, they're beloved house pets, and they're in the house all the time. But these people are, like I said, they're not doing a lot of training. They're not well versed on this. They're like, oh, this breed is just natural. This breed is just naturally good with kids and other dogs, so we don't need to do that stuff. So at some point, we just drop him off in a dog park. He's going to know what to do because his breeder did that for us. That's why we paid the money. And I feel for them. They really think you just buy that. Like they're catalog shopping for dogs, and like this one's got all the options and a sunroof, and they're off to go. And it's just not the reality. And then, you know, then we get frustrated because it's really hard. And this is part of our problem with doodle owners. It's really hard to tell a doodle owner they didn't get what they thought they bought.
Right.
And my workaround for that, I don't know about you guys, my workaround for that is to tell them how awesome their dog is, and that he just is unique in his own way. Well, he must be one of those rare doodles that sheds. How unique, you know, like whatever you have to do, you know, because they're kind of sold on the uniqueness, you know. But I think that a lot of the time, if we backtrack to helping these dogs feel more comfortable with it, and can we also discuss the fact that doodles, so many of our doodles are hunting dogs. They're standard poodles mixed with a golden retriever or a Labrador retriever. And if we thought of them as like a 6-month-old golden retriever that we were going to try to shave down meticulously and demat, we would be like, oh God, that's too much for that dog.
Right.
Right? But that's the
Exactly.
brain that's in there. That's the brain floating
Right.
around in their skull. And sometimes we just take it too far with them because we lose sight, you know? Like, oh, well, I got to get this done. And does he need to be fluff dried on his first grooming? I don't think he does. You know? Does he need his nails done? Probably, but we can work through that. You know, it's not like a nail trim is gonna, you know, he's gonna die if it doesn't get done this week.
But a good thing with the behavior aspect, and one of the things that that it wasn't until a few years in is how important it is to really communicate that with the owners, so they won't say, "Oh, but the last groomer just did it," and I'm like, "Well, the last groomer must have just held the foot till yeehaw and got it done," you know? And it's just, if you're open with that, sometimes, and, you know, I'm not saying all owners, but sometimes some owners truly didn't know because their groomers never expressed that to them.
I find a lot of that out where I am.
And it's like, well, my dog's been getting groomed this whole time. What do you mean he's scared of getting wet or the dryer? And it's like, well, you know, he is petrified. You know, with that. And I realized too, and Chrissy, you've helped me with this, I take videos, you know, and I saw this also. It's like, okay, so you see how he acts here. And now can you imagine taking scissors or clippers to the dog's face while he's going like this, trying to eat you? It is it's unsafe and not necessary to put him through that right now, you know, and being, and the salon that I have, we're changing it so much that I'm really catering to the emotional and the behavior side of the salon, the dogs, that we're truly seeing changes. All the aggressive dogs that we have, and I had one that got kicked out of 6 different grooming salons, never put a fight for us while we had them, not even once, because I didn't do that dog's nails that day. I didn't even attempt it because I knew he was already not there. But guess what? The second time he came in, he stood there for the nails. You know, and it's as simple, and it doesn't have to be a full grooming. It's just coming in for a nail trim and saying he is not emotionally prepared. And let's talk I feel like it's a trust issue. Yes. And talk to the owners about what's your game plan instead of saying, yeah, he didn't do it. Sorry. We'll try it next time. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the game plan. Let's talk about why and what does he do at home.
Well, and I used to be part of a lot of those hold the dog down and get it done. I mean, that's the way I was taught. I know many groomers were taught that way. I know it, you know, that a lot of us have trouble like going, well, what's wrong with that? Except that in many cases, I feel that's the bad experience.
Yes, I agree.
You know, and if you think about, so as a human parallel, my dad used to hold us down and tickle us, and he just didn't know when to quit. And my mom would come in and go, the kids are not having fun anymore. And he's like, what do you mean? You know, and like, and it was loving, and my dad's awesome, but he just didn't know when to stop. And I know what it's like to be held down and having somebody do stuff. And it's like, oh, you know, and we sometimes add more straps, you know, and I've been there and I've done a lot of that. But if we think about instead, and I say this a lot, so if you've ever listened to the podcast, like I say it a lot, but the goal is we want the dogs to be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And so we want them to be calm. And so we're going to actively work toward that. Like, it's not about telling them to not bite us. It's about like, hey, I want you to actually calm down. And then comfortable is a give and take. Like, I need to see if they're physically comfortable. Some of our dogs are not. Some of our dogs can't be anymore. They're in an age when they can't, you know, but also, are they emotionally comfortable with the tools that we're using? Comfortable is important. I want them to be comfortable with it. And then cooperative is different than obedient. Cooperative is, are they going to work with me? You know, are they fighting against me or working with me versus, you know, do as you're told. But if you have a goal in mind and you're working toward it, I think it's easier for us to laser focus in on like, oh, is this, what kind of experience is this dog having?
Right.
Oh, let's see. We've got a couple of comments in here. When I cried at the dentist when I was 8 years old and he held his hand over my nose and mouth and wouldn't let me breathe. Oh my God. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I just can't believe that. That's awful.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
why were you crying? No, I'm sorry.
Right?
What the heck?
Which I like to do a
Thank you.
shout out. She has
Oh,
a beautiful fox terrier, Dudley, who used to be very nervous and now is exceptionally great for her to hand strip.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He's cute too.
Yeah. Wicked.
He's
But
cute.
yeah, I mean, you think of stuff like that. So I had a similar situation at when I was in the dentist, and the nurse told me, "Do you want me to grab that doctor in because he's going to be worse?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, no! I don't want that doctor if he's going to be worse." And
That's
I still
crazy.
think to that. I mean, I'm 30 years old, 34 years old, and I'm still thinking of that when I was 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
now do it to a dog you can't explain that to.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of our owners think like, oh, it's like a haircut, but it's not a haircut for a dog. For a dog, it's more like a dentist visit mixed with a yoga class.
Yes.
Because we are
Yeah.
expecting them to do an awful lot. We're expecting
Mhm.
them to stand up. We run them through their entire range of motion. We're touching them everywhere, over and over and over again. And it's far more challenging. As a house call groomer, it's nice when owners are there and watching, and they're like, I didn't know how much stuff he had to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's nice for them to see that. And
Yeah.
and also it's nice for them to see improvement because they're right there in the room. They're like,
Right.
"Oh,
Right.
wow, you know? But a lot of our owners are like, what? It's a haircut, you know? We also, as an industry, need to think about behavior before we think about like selling a haircut.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we get really pressured into feeling like this dog has to look perfect, or this dog, you know, like they wanted him to look like this and I have to make him match the picture or whatever. And I know that that's really hard with those mixed coats anyway, but
Right.
we need to backtrack from trying to get that done, because that humanity over vanity thing isn't just about if dogs are matted. That also needs to be about if they're terrified.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Their state of mind, you know, it's like any breed, but and there's so much discrimination when it comes towards the doodles. I actually like the doodles. You know, I mean, I wish they didn't breed them, but I do like them, you know. But they're great dogs. They really
They make
are.
great pets.
They're great family dogs. And
Yeah.
you know, what I would really like to see is breeders get on the same page with groomers.
Yes.
I think if that just happened, even just a quarter of the breeders help educate the grooming side and the behavior side, with them,
Good.
bless you, that might change a lot, you know, and really build these dogs for success. Because most of the ones you have, they don't want a haircut. They want them 100 feet long. I want them to be flowing all the way down to Rapunzel's tower.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I want, which is fine.
Yep.
If you know how to take care
And
of it.
we like that really curly look. It's like, but he's matted underneath that really curly look.
Yeah.
Like, I will recurl him. That's awesome. You know, like the curly look is cute, but they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And they don't really understand it. Yeah. If we can get breeders more on board with that. And actually, since doodles are here to stay, if we can get them actually functioning as like a breed group, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to do it, then do the health testing for both of the breeds that you have mixed. Do whatever, like if it's part golden retriever, you do the testing that they do for golden retrievers. If you know, and don't tell owners, you know, exactly what they're going to be getting, because we know until you've had multiple generations of
You
those
don't
mixes,
have any
you
idea.
don't know. You know, across the litter, they could be very, very different dogs, and just more upfront with it. But they're here to stay, so maybe we should just be encouraging breeders to do an awesome job. Like, hey, listen, please do an awesome job. Tell people what they need to do. Tell them that grooming is going to be expensive.
Yes, and that they are going to have to get groomed depending on the coat type, 4 to 8 weeks for their entire lives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even go 8 weeks. They're not even allowed that.
Well, I have one that he looks like a lab.
Oh,
so
okay, unicorn.
Fine.
Yeah.
He's a lab with a longer tail and longer ears.
Yes.
Literally, you would never know that he was a doodle.
Yeah.
But he's cute.
Well, and if you look at the doodles themselves, like there are just so many different coat types there. And if owners knew ahead of time how much brushing they were going to need to be doing, I think a lot of people would not have chosen that dog.
Yes.
And some of that has to come from the breeder side, you know.
Exactly.
That has to come from whoever is selling them these dogs,
right.
you know.
Yep.
And sometimes it does. there's some really good breeders out there. I know up in our area, there's someone breeding burner doodles, and those dogs are lovely, and their owners are well prepared for what they need.
Actually, there's a breeder who gives. I spoke with a woman today. She has a doodle puppy. And the breeder, when you purchase a doodle puppy, and I'm like smiling because I couldn't believe it. You purchase a Christensen coral brush and a comb.
Oh, that's awesome.
Puppy. I almost melted. I'm like,
nice.
You keep breeding.
Yes, right.
I like you. And I couldn't believe it when the woman sent me a photo. She's like, "This is what my breeder required me to have in order to purchase this puppy."
That's awesome.
And I'm like, whoa.
Good.
I was like, yes.
Well, and I'm hoping that that's starting to change because I think that,
it feels like it is to me.
It feels like it is.
We have quite a few doodles that come in and they just want them short. And they've been that way since they were puppies because they know that there's a lot of brushing and they know that they mat easily and they know like they were educated at least that far. And we just take them down like a lab every time they come in, and they're more than happy that way. And the dogs are happy that way. So,
and they have the coat type that's okay for that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, Yeah.
These are much more poodly doodles than,
but these mixed coats, I mean, the variations there and trying to help people understand that. Oh, well, he doesn't shed. Oh, it's just getting stuck. Yeah, it's not all over the back of your car and it's not all over your sofa, but it's in there. It's in there,
Even poodle, I have a standard poodle. Even poodles shed. It just doesn't come out the same way.
Yeah.
Yep. And so when we talk to our owners, we have to also be thinking about like how much education we can give them. And what tools are you using? And I know sometimes people go into grooming because they don't like people, but you gotta talk to your people. Even if you have to come up with a script, hey, what tools are you using? How often do you brush them? Sometimes telling people, is there something you do every week? Is there like a show that you watch every week or something that can also turn into your dog's brushing time?
Right.
For a while, I used to tell people like Game of Thrones is on, get out your brush.
Right.
It's like I know there's something every week that you can sit down and really do your brushing with, but to have them help them along and guide them along, it's really easy to let 2 weeks go. And they don't have the kind of coat type that can handle that. So we need to help them with what tools you have, how often you do it, and how to do it. So when I take in a dog, which I don't do a lot of doodles, I'm not at the school all the time because my dogs I groom at home are small. But I was giving them the brushing lesson when the dog came in, not when they pick up.
Yes.
So that they can see what's going on. And then we can also have the whole discussion about like this patch here in the middle of his back is really pretty good. But underneath here is a hard, tricky spot to get, or this section of his leg. And if I think a lot of people don't understand that if a dog is matted, our choices are slide a clipper blade between the mats and the skin or brush it through. And we can go through and chop mats, but that will kill your wrist and your hand. That like our clippers just don't go through that. And if we start showing people like this is how we can get it done and we want to brush it out. I mean, I like big, long, flowy coats. I think they're fun.
Me too. I kind of get lost in the brushing.
Yeah. So we need to help our owners.
My poodle for a competition.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk Texas. I need a lot of dogs.
I know,
but anyways, right? It's just I would love to see more of us speak with the owners about the behavior of them. And you brought a huge point. They're hunting and retrieving dogs put into a body. So I had a Border Collie Australian Shepherd mix. I had 2 lunatics put into one. So I had like a double package, and she gave me the run for the money. Granted, I adopted her, but she gave me a run for that adoption fee. For the first 2 years, I did my research, and the reason I chose her was because I had a farm, and her job was when a horse escaped, she came back and retrieved it. She heard it back. Sorry, she heard it back to the pen. That was just her job. had I purchased that dog and lived in an apartment, she would have hated her life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
Yeah.
and that sometimes just the environment itself can help the behavior. You
Yes.
know, not enough exercise, and then we just see the tail end because they're just fed up, and now we're here forcing them to do all this stuff.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we really need to consider that. I know they're doodles and they're designer breeds, but we have to think of them as two breeds into
Yep.
one, just like you said with that little brain
Mhm.
that's in there. We
Yeah.
Yep.
have to consider that, so we don't see them like, oh, it's just a typical doodle. No. Let's see.
Mhm.
You know, let's see why.
Right.
So there's actually a really good book out there. I can put a link in. Give me a
Let's just
minute,
grab
but it's a really good book, and it's one that I use in the class that I teach. But it's Kim Brophy, and it's Meet Your Dog. But she talks about like each group and what group they're part of, and in not
Right.
necessarily the same groups that like the AKC does, but like
Right.
gun dogs and what we know about them. And you know what? They're impulsive. They can be really clingy. They can be really sound sensitive. And I think a lot of us don't think about that with gun dogs because like firing a gun, but like
Right.
turning on a vacuum next to a gun dog, they're far more likely to be like, whoa, you know,
Right. Yeah.
like
Oh,
if
yeah.
we can accept who they are and be prepared for that. But she talks about in her book, there's what they've learned, like
Mhm.
that dog's learning, their experiences, their environment, their genetics, what they were genetically built to do, and then their individual self. So there are four things to think about with every dog. And just looking at it from that direction, like we expect more out of these doodles, but they're like a standard poodle is different than a mini poodle.
Right. Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Absolutely.
And every individual is going to be different too. But like if you tried to like do the same thing with a 6-month-old golden retriever that you're trying to do with a 6-month-old doodle, you would have the same kind of problems.
Right.
Because they can't hold their brain together for 3 hours of dematting.
Exactly.
Like, that's just not fair. So actually, I'll put her book in here. Let me see if I can find a good link for it. It's actually a really good book. It's taken the dog training world by storm. A lot of the groomers have said that they've thought it was really pretty helpful. So let me look it up while you guys talk.
The training course that I'm taking, the dog training course, talks a lot about that same thing, taking into account the breed, what they were bred for, all that. Basically, the same four things you just said, and that changed how I groom quite a bit.
Yeah, it's amazing how and you're like, why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
There are definitely times you're like, why didn't that ever occur to me?
Yeah,
You know?
the light bulb moment when you go,
Yeah.
oh.
You know, and like one of the things, and it's funny because a common issue I have with the doodles is their feet. They really don't like their feet being touched. And then working them through it and speaking with them, you know, and saying, okay, ready, I'm going to line them up. Okay, here I go, Dremel. And it sounds crazy that I say that for every toe that they have. But when I don't,
it really helps. I feel like it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. And then the most beautiful thing that I've seen is that the other groomers in the salon and the interns, when they do it and they're like, wow, it really works. So yeah, it works. You know, it sounds ridiculous because you're saying it for every nail, but I can feel.
But eventually, you don't have to.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Eventually, you don't have to. Yeah.
Right. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I have calming music. I have calming essential oils. And it doesn't hurt. And the calming music is free, except for the electricity that I charge it once a week. You know,
I was gonna say it wasn't free. I gave that to you.
That is true. That is true. The best gift I've ever had, and I did another one, by the way. So one was cheap. No,
well, she's using the iCalm for dogs.
Music.
It is
through
a dog ear.
And the dogs.
We use that in daycare. So
yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
It works. And the thing is, what you guys always say, if it doesn't, well, then it doesn't.
You go on to the next thing. Try the next thing.
But the time that it does, I can tell you it's changed the environment completely and the behavior set of all these dogs.
Well, and there are some things that are harmless and worth trying. And because I'm not running a study, I don't care which part of it worked. If it's calming music And the pheromone spray, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Adaptil. I know Katie and Lori are, but anybody else in the audience. But Adaptil mimics the pheromones that their mama gave off while they were nursing. And it has a calming effect if they don't feel like they're in danger. But that's the thing. If they really think this is dangerous, it's not going to change anything.
Right.
But if we help them feel like, hey, buddy, this is calm and I'm trying to relax you, for a lot of dogs, it makes a big difference. And just these little things that we can do. One of the things that I name all the time is I'll say loud noise before I turn on a dryer, before I turn on a clipper vac, before I turn on my louder clippers, like loud noise. And my dogs that I groom all the time, they're kind of like, like you can watch them kind of like process, like loud noise. And they kind of,
Okay.
And if I don't say loud noise, some of them are still kind of jumpy.
Yeah.
And that's not a behavior problem, right? Like if you come over behind me and go, bah, and I'm like, oh, like, am I a behavior problem? No, I'm just jumpy.
Yep. I tend to, the ones that I know are foot sensitive or leg sensitive, I start on their back and my hand goes down their whole leg down to their foot. And it's almost like, I do that. It started because of the old dogs that can't see or can't hear, to let them know where I am. But I find that it works really well on the foot fussy ones because they have a warning that I'm not just grabbing their foot or I'm not just taking their foot. They have that little bit of warning that I'm working towards it. And I also tend to, the dogs that I groom regularly, I tend to go in the same direction around the dog.
Yep.
Does that make sense? And so it's always front foot, back foot. And they learn that. And eventually I have some that will go, okay, I know this one's next. So here you go. And I know, they like structure and routine. And I think that if they can trust you that that's the way you're going to do it every time, that makes a huge difference.
And also, they pick up on routines. So if owners are only bringing their dog in when they are matted,
right,
they are also picking up on this routine of this is just poking, prodding, pulling. And they easily pick up on like, I hate this, just as much as they can pick up on like, oh, this is predictable and okay, and so many owners bring them in when they need it, and we're in a time now where groomers can be really choosy. And we can be more like, listen, I'm looking for people who are going to be in every 6 week, every 4 week, if you can't do that, I don't have space for you.
Right.
And help eliminate some of that because, dogs also pick up on what happens all the time. So one of the other things I wanted to mention about the behavior part is that some of these dogs are also coming in watching another dog have a bad experience.
Exactly.
And so when we have a dog who's really unprepared and we're pushing through it, they're affecting every other dog in the room.
Yep.
So how many of our dogs are observing that happening? And go back to a dentist example. Maybe you're a kid and you've never had a problem at the dentist, but now there's a kid screaming in the other room.
Exactly.
You're like, what is happening over there? Like, is he going to do that to me? And so sometimes just by allowing some of that stuff to go on and not addressing the behavior problem, you're creating new behavior problems with other dogs in the room in a way that we don't necessarily think about.
Right. And a good way to help eliminate that is I don't tell the clients that I need them to come back. I mean, they can't come back. Is I have space for them either in the morning before we open or after, and until you work with your dog, these are the times that you have, and we're going to have to do a different type of grooming, which is a different price range. And this is why we do it and how we do it. Now, the reason I started doing this is also if I have groomers who tend to like to push through things, they have to do it when it's quiet so we don't affect the dogs who are like, I've worked so hard to get this so-and-so to be so good. Now all that training just went out the window, and I have them come in and I explain it. Your dog can come in at 8 a.m. till 9. Whatever I can get done in that hour, know that it'll be nice and calm and quiet for your dog. And then eventually they'll get put back on in the and then 9 to 5, like everyone else. I have one dog who he's been this way. He's actually a mini Bernedoodle, a mini Labra Bernedoodle. Mini Labra Bernedoodle is what it is. And I groom her at 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning. And I do her in the cat room because she can't even handle a car. The second someone pulls up just to come into the salon to set up, she's out and I can't even get her to come back from that. So what I've been doing is making sure I avoid any interaction. So when she starts seeing people, she's already done.
Yeah.
And she's getting better to the point where I'm getting it closer to the 9 o'clock to see how she does. And it takes time. So it's not only the parents, it's on us to really help them. But know that
to accommodate and to modify our grooming sessions in whatever way we have
to. Do make sure you talk to the owners that this is something that you're helping them with their dog.
Right.
Yeah. This is their problem.
Right. Because it's not our problem. It is theirs that they need to work with, but you're willing to work with them. Because this is what we do for our job. We think dogs need to get groomed, which is why we're in it.
Yeah.
Well, and I usually also want people to know that their dog is going to have regular grooming needs for at least 15 years.
Right.
Right? If you start telling people, but this puppy right now is going to be groomed every 4 to 6 weeks till 2037, right? They're what? And but to tell them like this is lifelong. There's no point where it's like, oh, we don't groom him anymore because he's old. Like that's not something that's ever going to happen with a doodle. Like this doodle is going to have grooming needs its entire life. And the time that we spend at the beginning teaching him to trust us and that this is safe is going to be key to how this dog handles it their whole lifetime.
Right.
That foundation really has to be there. And I also want to mention too that I think as groomers, we start thinking that everything is a grooming issue, and many of these dogs have training issues, significant training issues outside of grooming.
Yes.
If you were walking down the street and saw this dog on the back of the couch slamming into the plate glass window and barking at you because you're just walking down the street, you would say, I bet he's not real great in a grooming shop environment. But some groomer is over there going, I just had so much trouble getting near his eyes. It's not always our fault, and it's not always something that can be resolved in grooming sessions. Right? Some of this stuff is like, listen, dog training's not a new idea. Have you done any dog training?
Right.
What's going on at home? Why won't he let you brush him?
Yeah.
I just see that as one of the ones that really we hear an awful lot. Like, what do you mean he won't let you brush him? Let's explore that more, because as a dog owner, you have some responsibilities, and that's something you should be able to do. So there's something broken. We need to talk about it, help you fix it.
Right.
Yep.
Very good point too.
Yeah, there are way too many dog training problems that we blame ourselves. Wait a minute. Like, that's not our fault. Not our fault at all. And the idea that that owners won't. Should we talk about that too? Because I think a lot of groomers are stuck in this idea that like, oh, but they won't do it. But if we start laying down the law that this is the way we do business here,
right? Yeah,
this is the way I do business, and it's for your dog's safety. It's for your dog's health. I'm not just going to add some more straps and some more people and get it done no matter what, because we know that causes panic and fear, and that's not what I'm willing to do for you.
Right.
As your expert. And actually that comes up once in a while. It's like, well, I thought you were supposed to be some sort of a behavior expert. And I'm like, I am. And I'm telling you that's why I don't do it that way.
Yep.
Because we do sometimes, like, it can be a tough talk, but like I'm not going to force groomings on your dog, And I think a lot of groomers assume that getting the mats off of a dog who's really matted is the most important thing in that moment. And I just question if it is.
Right.
I mean, mats are important. We want to get those off. But if it traumatizes the dog to get those all off in one session, then I just think we shouldn't be traumatizing the dog. If it's something that needs to be done, that's going to be traumatic, and it needs to be done so much that it's going to cause this dog to have a meltdown, I think we should be sending it to the vet and treating it as medical.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know,
That it could cause a lifelong problem
yeah,
by traumatizing that dog.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or a whole bunch of retraining later.
Right.
And I know sometimes people are like, oh, we can retrain them later. It's like, but can we
But-
though?
Yeah.
You know, what if we prevent this by doing part of that grooming today and part of that grooming tomorrow and part of that grooming next week and lumping it together into like little tiny pieces done over the course of a couple weeks? That dog has been living in mats. It didn't happen last night, you
Right.
know, and just to be like, open your mind to the idea that maybe we don't need to get it all done today, even though he's matted.
Someone's coming for Thanksgiving tomorrow.
You know, my own sister called me once, day before Thanksgiving. She's like, I was trying to get my corgi in for grooming, and it seems like is grooming before Thanksgiving a thing?
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, it's a thing.
it reminds me of the clip of Mulan, the Disney movie. Dishonor on you, dishonor on the cow.
Yep.
Oh gosh, I've had my dad. He's funny. He likes to help everyone out, and he goes, I know it's Christmas week because he called me Christmas week, but neighbor so and so needs their dog to be groomed so bad, and they asked if it's okay if I called you to get in, and I'm like, well, so and so actually did try to call me, and I told him I unfortunately didn't have a spot open the day before Christmas because he called me on the week of Christmas.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was so busy, just like the Thanksgiving, and I'm just like, yeah, it's pretty busy, just like busy.
Yeah.
I live on coffee.
Yes.
And I just started getting used to drinking water and food now. I do schedule it in now. You know?
That's nice. That's nice.
Sweet.
Well, and a lot of our owners are first-time dog owners too. So
Yes,
right.
keep in mind that they're like, what? So then somebody told us that his hair's going to keep growing, and it was probably time for a haircut.
Yeah.
You know, and treat those people with dignity. They are trying their best. They don't know, you know, like, well, we do brush him. What do you brush him with? You know, and but they're totally unprepared. Totally unprepared. And the cost of grooming, I think they are not ready for.
Yeah.
Because especially if they're ones who aren't bringing their dogs in well brushed and well behaved, their dogs aren't prepared for it. Their cost is really high. It's like, so some things you can do to lower that cost is to train your dog, work with us on how we can get that done and get your dog comfortable with it and keep your dog brushed out and maybe pick a trim that's going to be easier for you to take care of. But really, I mean, it's expensive, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I totally couldn't have a poodle if I wasn't a groomer.
Yeah, right.
I don't have a poodle because
Lease a car or groom a doodle. Lease
Right.
a car or groom a doodle. You know? Feed your kids, groom a doodle.
Yeah.
You know? And some of them have actually been told a lie that their dog doesn't need much grooming. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
We've had breeders in our area that I've heard that from a lot of clients. So they said only twice a year, and they get this golden trim, and doodle trim, and they give me a photo, and it's the same breeder because it's the same photo with the same information that they get groomed twice a year, and they don't shed. You know, and
and they don't need training because they're good with kids and they're already good with other dogs, and you don't need to do any of that dog stuff that you would do for a rat.
You have to find the root of the behavior.
Yeah.
Issue that's going on there before they, and I will never say that I'm a dog trainer because
you will eventually.
Eventually, you're right. I'm in that process. I'm in those classes. But I will never say, and I always say consult either, if it's a special case, you go to a veterinarian behaviorist or behavior consultant. Here are a few, and I encourage groomers to get to know your trainers around your area.
Yeah.
See who you want to recommend. You know, and if it's worth recommending them, if you truly like them, don't say, just because you groom dogs and you don't know really much about training, that's fine. But work with someone who can. So they can work with your dog, give you tips on, okay, let's do this for this dog to make sure it's successful. And I have a trainer that way before I got involved with the whole pad, I used to always go back to and ask her all the time. And 18 years later, I still talk to her. And I always talk to her about needs and
when we collaborate with other professionals, it always makes us look good.
Right.
Exactly.
If I find someone who has, I think you need a grooming van, and I help you find the groomer with the grooming van, I'm the hero. Anytime that we're helping them find whatever service they need.
Right.
I mean,
there should be more of that.
Yeah, you sent someone to us, and he was like, I am so impressed with Chrissy giving me your name. Yeah, and it's one of those things.
Oh yeah, he loved you guys too. Yeah, he was like, thank you for sending me there. They took really good care of me.
Yeah,
but there should be more of that. There really should.
Right, and that was a dog who's apparently got kicked out of 5 different salons, and I have no idea why. Because I do. He is fear-based aggressive, but he was perfect. We took it. We took it slow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is that, I think that there needs to be more behavior stuff in dog grooming.
Absolutely.
I have a program doing it. But one of the things I find often is I get talking to groomers and I'm like, but I groom a lot of dogs with behavior problems, but that is not what made me a dog trainer or what made me a behavior consultant. Like, I pursued this other career. I have credentials in a whole different profession. And I encourage more people to do some of that and to take some of those classes. Because I'm not just resting on like, hey, I successfully groom dogs who, have a behavior problem and help them along with it. It enhanced my training and grooming enhanced my training and training enhanced my grooming.
Right.
But they are very different fields. And it's okay for us to say, yeah, I'm not the expert in that.
Right.
And we do that in grooming, right? There are groomers who are like, oh, I know who to send you for Asian fusion. I don't really do that. That person does. I know who I can send you to for a terrier. As a trainer, I'm like, ooh, separation anxiety. I don't really take those cases. Now if your dog's just separation sad, I take those. But true separation anxiety, like, I'd send you to somebody else, because we can't be everything for everybody.
Right. Yep. That's partly why I started pursuing a dog training degree, because you can't be everything to everybody. And owning a doggy daycare and doing boarding and grooming, I think that's really going to add to my knowledge base. And I've always thought that groomers should know more about canine behavior and body language. Well, feline as well, but I don't do much in the cat department. Because I think if they know it, you're not going to get bit as often. You're going to see it before it happens. And that totally changed my.
Right.
Yeah. There are so many things that you kind of go, huh? Like,
right.
So for instance, one of the ones that I hear people saying is like, when I tell them about the opposition reflex.
Yes. Yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people go, and I know when I heard about that, I'm like, dang. So for anybody out there who wants to know what the opposition reflex is that dogs instinctually, as a reflex, whether they mean to or not, pull against pulling and push against pushing.
Yep.
And that alone causes so many of the fights and stuff that we have with dogs. So anytime somebody tells me, what's up with this doodle and I can't do his front legs, I'm like, are you holding them back and he's pulling away from you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like,
put your hand behind his elbow.
That's the opposition reflex. You get behind his elbow and help support his leg. And suddenly, and they're like, well, I don't know if that would, do you really think that would,
I can tell you that's one of
magic. It doesn't always work.
No, but
in so many cases.
It works enough.
Yeah. And the instinct is, and the way it's been described to me, and it made sense to me, is that in the natural world, if you got stuck, nothing is coming to save you. You pull free.
Right. Yes.
If something's pushing you, it's pushing you to your doom. You push back. right? Like it's just an instinct, and people do it too. People are terrible pullers.
Yes.
As a dog trainer, trying to teach somebody, and when they're like, my dog pulls a lot, I'm like, and you do too. Like you're trying to get people to not pull. We're terrible pullers.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
grabby monkeys, and we pull against pulling and push against pushing. But the opposition reflex, I remember for a lot of people, they're just like, no way. Is it that easy? You know?
Absolutely. Most
And
of
a
the
lot of
time.
the doodles. Yeah.
Ooh,
Lot
the
of the
Goldens.
doodles.
Goldens are the leaners. Oh, this Golden just leans so much. Where's your hand placement? You know, and I love
Yep.
teaching that because when first of all, the light bulb that came into my head was like a
I know.
volcano.
I remember
like
when you were like, the what now? What?
Yeah, I was like, and I couldn't, and the terminology is my thing because I have to say it like 7 million times
Right.
for the terminology to get stuck in my head. Because I'd be like, what's that word, Chrissy, again? What's that word, Chrissy, again? You know, but I knew the concept of it, but teaching that now, and I love teaching that because it just brings a light bulb to almost every intern, and they're like, holy cow, wow. And then you can just see how they change with it, and I'm like, take
that dog that's pasted up against the side of the tub, and you put your hand in between their body and the tub, and you're pulling them, pulling.
Yeah.
But if you also kind of go,
Hand on the other side, they go.
they do. Not all the time. It's not magic, but so often. Give them something. Next thing you know, they're standing tall, and you're like pressing on their back a little, and they're right in the middle.
Yep. They're just like hanging out, like, okay.
So many of the fights that we have with these doodles, especially, they're like front leg stuff, you know, and they're pulling against us, and we're like, "Why are you acting like this?" And it's like, because it's the opposition reflex.
And the face, when you're trying to do the face, and they're going, because you hair, and so they're
Yep. Yeah, there are so many little behavior things that, you know, I want more groomers to know about.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
It
But the doodles are challenging. Doodles are challenging because they're coat type, because they're young hunting dogs getting their first grooming, probably too late because, you know, owners don't know. Actually, I talked to a trainer friend of mine, and I was like, okay, so quick quiz. A doodle comes in for a grooming at 5 months old. Is that dog early, on time, or late? He's like, as early as 5 months? You know? Non-groomers don't know what we do. I'm like, oh, non-groomers don't know what we do. There are breeds that we could do that with. Doodles are not,
right.
You know, one of those. He's like, as early as 5 months? Yes. But again, fields that don't talk to each other, which is too bad, you know. Their professions should be talking to each other more.
Absolutely.
Definitely get involved. Look them up. Look up your trainers in the area. I strongly encourage that.
Like inviting them to come watch a dog get groomed once would make a huge difference, because I don't feel like trainers understand that it's not necessary. The dog has to stand there for an hour, you know, and they're like, oh, well, you know, you need to get used to pushing and everything. Well, they also need to stand still for an hour, 2 hours, especially a doodle. You know, you have to they have to get used to the noises, the feelings, and I don't think that trainers think about that.
No,
they don't. And often trainers and vets are the first people that this dog meets. The first professionals. And when more vets know that, and more trainers know that, you know, like, then maybe we can get that message out better, because it's just a really challenging thing. And I would argue, and I have argued this a lot with trainers, that the dog grooming process is far more complicated than the vet visit. The vet visit is not the most complicated thing a dog is going to go through. And everyone's like, but they give injections and draw blood. But we spend more time with them. We do tons and tons of stuff. We are relentless. Nothing else in a dog's world holds their attention for 2 hours. You know, it's particularly challenging. But if we can teach a dog to be good for grooming, in my experience, they are better at their vet, and they are better for their care with their home at home, or with their doggy daycare, or with their pet sitter. It translates to everybody else if we can teach them to be good for the grooming process. So that, I think, should be more of the focus. It's like, let's teach you how to be good for this stuff. And I don't care if you can heel on leash.
Yep.
I know I'm the trainer out there. Come fight me, As a trainer, I'm like, I don't care if you heel on leash. Heel is a competition style. Walk politely on a leash.
Yes,
Loose leash is fine. And learn how to let people touch you all over and not be in dangerous grooming situations. Behavior problems are when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, and equipment gets broken.
Yep.
And there's a safety risk to behavior problems.
Right. Right.
And if you get nothing else out of this, also think about if you injure that doodle during his grooming, like that, you have lost money.
And if you really want to hear more about that, Chrissy has a wonderful podcast episode about it.
Yes. Totally listen to that all the time. Now that I figured out podcasts, it sounds really bad, but I finally figured it out.
Okay. So yeah, I don't promote myself well. The Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast.
Yes.
And you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts, or you can go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com. There are 164 episodes out right now that you can listen to while you dry dogs.
Yes.
You're wearing ear protection anyway. And what?
What was that, Lori?
We totally laugh while, I love her jokes within it.
Yes.
I feel like I'm talking to her right there, and I just completely laugh. And then I text her. I laughed.
Yeah. I occasionally get a silly text like, did you just say blah, blah, blah? I did.
Yeah.
But I try to have episodes that are accessible to groomers, trainers, owners, veterinarians. So sometimes people will ask me, well, is there information for owners? And there are a couple of episodes specifically for owners that you can send your owners to.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of owners say, oh, that was really helpful for me. So it's not just about groomers and boring training tech talk.
Yeah. And I would like to say a couple of the comments here. And yes, Renee, our biggest thing is see what the dog can tolerate, because we won't force any dog into anything that they can't handle. It's not worth scaring that dog. And I like to a lot of the times express to them, well, can you imagine a 5-year-old with a huge matted hair and you wanted to brush it out all in 1 hour? Can you imagine doing that to a 5-year-old child? So we shouldn't be doing it to your dog as well, and you're correct. Hand stripping takes even longer. And we need to sit there. There's some doodles that need to be stripped. Very, very, very rare. It's not often. I think I've only met one, but they need, if that's the process you want to go through, it needs to, they need to be okay with being touched all over and being okay and mentally prepared. And
Jamie mentions here the crate training. Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't
I've known so many owners who thought crates were mean and never taught their dog about a crate. But you know what? Being able to be in a crate is a really good life skill.
Yeah. Even if
when I was a vet tech, there were a couple of times where we had a dog that was injured, waiting for surgery, that we needed to have just somebody sit in a room with them on leash because they were terrified of a crate.
Yep.
That's
not the time to learn how to be in a crate.
Right. And it's not just for grooming. It's for anything, an emergency, fires, anything.
Yeah.
You need your dog to be in a crate. They need to make sure they're okay.
I crate trained my cats.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I taught them how to go into a crate. The hardest part about getting one in a crate for vet visit was pulling the other one out too. Like, no, you can't both go. They're like, they're great here. Yay. It's not hard to teach a dog about a crate, and it's not mean,
right.
It's a really good life skill.
Yeah, my dog actually loved it. And when I took her crate away, because we moved into a smaller house years ago, she actually would go to the corner coffee table and underneath it and crawl in there. And she's like, you took my crate away. How dare you? So she'll just get in there and she just sits there and you only see her little nose out. And I'm like, where's the dog? I'm like, oh my gosh, she fit through that little area. She wants her crate. Second I put the crate back, she's like, yes.
It's a nice little spot to hide.
Yep.
Yep. Especially if kids are running around and stuff. They're like, okay, I'm going to go someplace where I'm not going to get stepped on. There's a lot of mystery about crate training and, people being really worried if it's mean. But, that's why, if we help trainers and vets understand what we need and we're all on board in the beginning, just get more of that message out. Yeah.
It's not just the grooming world. It'll help the training and the vet field.
Yep.
Yep. And, one of the things that I tell owners too, they're like, oh, well, I work from home and he doesn't really need to learn to be in a crate. And I'm like, where were you 15 years ago in your life? And where do you think you'll be in 15 years from now?
Mhm.
Can you really tell me you're going to work from home for the next 15 years and that dog's never going to need to be in a crate? Because I've helped a lot of 8-year-old dogs learn how to get in a crate. Oh yeah, Jamie's also saying, everywhere they go, vet, boarding, groomer, and they should feel safe if they're stressed,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we want to be kind. That's the whole behavior angle. Like, what if we can just teach them it's safe?
Right.
We do this because we want to have fun with the dogs, I don't want to have to force dogs into stuff, and it's not necessary. We can teach
Right.
dogs to be good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. At
And
any
they're so cute. Yeah, at any age.
At any age. Yep.
Yep. There are times where a dog has health problems where they might not be able to learn things well. Like there are some extremes, but a healthy dog can be taught to be good for grooming.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Might take a long time, a lot of dedication, but
From all
they
parties.
can. Yeah. But how long is that long time? Right? If it takes you 6 months out of a 15-year lifespan, was that a long time? I don't think it is.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I had a Lhasa that took me about a year,
Mhm.
just to get her to trust me for the face.
Yep.
And that's because prior she had her jaw broken, and it wasn't anyone's fault. It's just she got into a situation and she was like, "Oh my God, last time someone touched me, my jaw broke," or I had some kind of pain.
Right.
But guess what? After that year, that dog was the best behaved dog. I think I groomed her for 13 years before she passed.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I work
she
with a
was-
lot of really weird cases with dogs that
Right.
have dementia that aren't going to be able to learn anything, but you just work around keeping them as calm as possible. A couple of dogs that have had some brain damage from like a traumatic injury, like if they get scared, they're gone. Like they just don't,
Yep.
they're too freaked out. You've got to keep them at that point that they can handle, and which is kind anyway. That's what we should be doing to all of them.
Exactly.
But if they get overwhelmed, they just turn into sharks, and
Mhm.
it's not their fault. They don't know what they're doing. They just, their brain doesn't work right anymore.
Mhm.
Oh, Renee's saying her doodle had a liver shunt and surgery at 8 months old and is terrified of new things, including crates.
Oh.
You know what? And there are ways to work on that. Anytime something that really scares you, it's like, it caused you pain or something. I slipped on the ice and hurt my shoulder. Walking up icy hills, I was extra like, oh no, this is how I hurt my shoulder, It's like, I was never like that before, and it took a long time. A lot of good experiences of walking up icy hills without hurting my shoulder before I let it go.
Right.
And something scary happened, the surgery and being in, 8 months old, being in a crate, things like that can all lead to like, oh, I don't know, this reminds me of something that was scary.
Yep.
All right, it's 8:30. Woohoo!
Did it.
We did it. I'm trying to think if we covered everything. I think we've covered just about every angle.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we got some people in here talking to us. That was good.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know what our topic is next month. I didn't look. I didn't take a look. Oh, do you happen to have it in front of you?
I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah. I looked at it this morning, but I don't remember now.
No, oh yeah, I can see that you looked it up this morning.
Yeah.
So let's see.
I think OSHA was the first one.
Yeah, OSHA is the first. So safety standards. So OSHA will be on August 1st. Is our next topic.
Yep.
Woohoo!
So
That's a great topic.
is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'd love to learn even more. And I love how the sunset is going behind you, Katie.
She remembered to keep the lights on this time.
I'm not fading.
Last time she was just fading to black.
Oh my gosh.
Katie out.
Yeah.
Well, it is lovely speaking with you, and know that we do this every Monday.
Every
Sometimes
Monday at 7:30.
yeah. And we also are part of the is it the best practice, Master Groomer Best Practice?
Master
Um,
Groomers Council.
Council of Best.
yes, I'm glad
Yep.
with the terminology, and I encourage everyone, every groomer, to be a part of that, so we can
Yep.
speak in depth and what we're looking for as a standard for grooming. You know, it's good that we all get on the same page and be okay with talking to other groomers and trainers and everything it's just going to better ourselves in our field.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's fun.
Yeah, and we
Right?
got in here because we enjoy the animals.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
people can be. I love talking to people, so that you know, you have to make me stop talking. But some of us who get nervous to talk to people, it's okay, because if we just focus on the dog, it's fine. You know, just
Well,
focus
and
on the dog.
in a perfect world, right? The dogs that you're grooming are all well behaved for grooming, or have owners who are totally on board with the things that we need to do to
Exactly.
teach your dog to be groomed so that everybody can be safe.
Right.
And when you hit that point, oh, grooming is lovely. then it's like, oh, this is great. It's so much less stress, you know.
Absolutely.
The behavior portion is so important, you know, because it lowers our stress level too.
Yep.
I don't
Right.
want to get hurt. Been
Right.
hurt by a dog being crazy, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to groom again. You know, things happen, but the behavior part, if we help them be comfortable with it, you know. All right, I think we need to wrap this up. Checking everybody's messages. Renee, you were so chatty with us. I love it. Thank you.
Renee
That's
has a
awesome.
nice hand stripping dog that comes in, and a duo that
I
we're going to
met
meet.
him. He's cute.
Yeah.
And Janie, thank you for joining in. And hopefully there were other people listening and watching, but I'm not sure because this is the first time I've hosted, and those are the ones popping up on the feed here.
Yeah, so that's what I see for thank you, Diana and Janie. It was great.
All right. Next week, Monday night, 7:30, and we'll do it all again.
Oh, and Ashley.
Oh, is Ashley on there?
Yes, thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, she said she was going to be on because she was just in my class. So
yeah, we love you, Ashley.
I
don't
Lisa's
know
in there too somewhere.
I've heard of you. Thank you.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Everybody have a great week.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Let's do our end stream. Oh, wait, our outro. Let's do our outro. Let me do that. Let's do our outro. Don't want to mess that up.